I'm Madison Timmons.
And I'm JT Timmons.
And we're the co-creators of the hit podcast, The Most Haunted City on Earth.
Look, we love ghosts, but we also love true crime. So we here at Haunted City Studios decided to create From One to Wicked.
A true crime podcast with a killer twist. We'll investigate,
discuss,
then rate
the most brutal and devious crimes and the monsters who commit them.
On a scale from 1 to wicked. So sit back and kill some time with us.
And remember, next time you're walking down the street,
you might just be passing a perfect wicked 10. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of From One to Wicked. My name is Madison Timmons.
And I'm JT Timmons.
And today we are going to be discussing the murder of Emani Moss.
The emotional part of today's was when the jurors heard testimony from the lead investigator and the medical examiner about Moss and her husband, Eman, allegedly calculated every part of Emani's abuse and death. The father took a plea deal to avoid the death penalty and testified against his wife yesterday.
11 Live's Latasha Givens was in the courtroom. Latasha, we cannot forget this case is about a 10-year-old little girl. It had to be so hard to hear that testimony today.
It certainly was, Cheryl and Jeff. There were details about the case that jurors were hearing for the very first time, like the process of the autopsy and what the medical examiner actually found. Some of those details are simply too graphic to share on air, and they certainly evoked emotion with a lot of the jurors and mostly everyone inside the courtroom. But before the medical examiner took the stand today, the lead investigator in the case was up first, talking about some of the very first interviews with Emani Moss, Emani's father. Here are some more details about that. The lead investigator talked about some of the first interviews with Eman's father. He stated he knew Eman was lying from the beginning when he said his daughter died after swallowing a chemical, and from there his story kept changing. The investigator says Eman was consistent about one thing, and that was his wife. He was trying to cover up for Tiffany. The investigator then describes Tiffany as calm and polite when she was arrested, but says her actions were cold and calculating. As part of the evidence, the investigators say they uncovered security video taken just one day after Emani died, proving how they tried to cover up her death.
We determined that Emani had died in different bedding, was wrapped up in that bedding, and then the next day after she died, Tiffany went and bought new sheets for that bed and kept the bed and made the bed up.
And closing arguments are set for Monday morning, and we'll be out here again bringing you the very latest details in this case. Back to you.
Latasha in Gwinnett County, thank you.
Now, we kind of stumbled upon this because, as y'all know, JT and I, when we're driving, we like to look up various true crime cases.
That's how this whole podcast started.
Truly, it really is. And so we were looking up different death row inmates in the area we were in, which was Tallahassee. Mm-hmm. And so then we were deciding, like, oh, I wonder who's on death row in Georgia. And we came across the only woman on death row. So naturally, we were like, okay, well, what did she do? And we read her case, and it is one of the most grotesque cases we've read in a long time. Truly. It's a very disturbing case. So just to give a fair warning at the beginning that if you have any triggers for child neglect, abuse, things of that nature, you might want to go listen to one of our other episodes because this is definitely heavy in those topics. But otherwise,
I will say that one of the first things I thought after hearing about this case in the car was this is probably worse than 90% of the death row cases I've heard that men have done. Now, it doesn't matter, obviously sex, gender, it doesn't matter when it comes to the heinousness of things. We know that there is it's lopsided when it comes to men being on death row versus women, and this was just
it's heinous.
Level heinous. Yeah. So.
And because of that, we are going to be eliminating body count on our scale this week. just because we feel like it's not appropriate for this particular case to utilize that, because it technically is only one person, but the nature of the crime is so horrendous that we didn't feel like body count was an appropriate measure. So we are going to be ranking it on brutality, premeditation, motive, and difficulty of investigation. Now, of course, as always, this is interactive. So at the end of the podcast, you make sure that you leave your ranking down below in the comments if you're listening on YouTube or Spotify. There's now comments on Spotify, which is very cool. So with that, though, let's go ahead and dive right on in. First off, here's some photos of Emani. She is a precious little angel baby.
Yep.
Literally, with her little wings. Cute. She's so cute. Aww. She was a very cute child. So a little bit about Emani. So Emani Gabrielle Moss, Emani Gabrielle Moss, born on April 23rd, 2003 in Georgia, faced a challenging early life. Shortly after her birth, her mother, who was struggling with drug addiction, relinquished her parental rights, leaving Emani in the sole custody of her father, Iman. Now, Emani was one of 5 children born to her mother, and unfortunately, her mother surrendered her, so she wasn't really in contact with any of her siblings at this point. But Emani's father was later charged and convicted of battery and second-degree child cruelty in 2004 for an incident where Emani's biological mother was beaten in front of her.
Wow.
And that's her sole provider.
Wow.
So this poor child was already just set up in a really bad situation.
Absolutely.
But the person who truly was the cruelest of all to Emani was her stepmother, Tiffany Moss. So this is Tiffany. And that's Iman.
Okay. When reading about him, I didn't see the photos, so it's weird to put a face to the crime.
Yeah. So Iman, who largely raised Emani, often took her to Freedom Christian Church. There he met Tiffany Moss, who was a preschool teacher, which is, after knowing what Tiffany Moss does, how this woman was allowed to be around other people's children is absolutely mind-boggling. But in July of 2009, Iman and Tiffany married and had 2 children, a son and a daughter. While there are no records suggesting that Tiffany abused her biological children, she did abuse Emani. In 2008 and early 2009, a lawsuit alleges that DFCS, which is the Child Protection Agency, was informed by a reporter named Emani, who named Emani that she may have been sexually abused when she was only 3 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Goodness.
The report states that there was blood in Emani's underwear after she was picked up from daycare, but she never received any subsequent medical treatment. So the abuse escalated in March of 2010 after a beating of Emani resulted in Moss losing her job. At the age of 6, Emani confided in a school nurse expressing fear of returning home with a poor report card, fearing her parents would harm her. She also revealed that her stepmother had spanked her with a curtain rod.
Jeez.
The nurse discovered multiple scabs, bruises, and welts on Emani's arms, back, chest, legs, and shoulders. So, consequently, Emani was taken to the local police headquarters, obviously, because that's very concerning. Now, Tiffany was arrested and charged for first-degree child cruelty because of this. Tiffany admitted to hitting Emani 3 times after she failed to complete her homework.
Like, you would think that after someone is arrested and charged with first-degree child cruelty,
right,
that this would be the end of it.
You
think it'd be like, you got to find her, even if she goes into the system, you got to find her another parent. Well, and so and
so that's the thing, is we'll later talk about, she was taken into custody by her grandmother for a short period of time. I'm like, why was she not with her grandmother this whole time?
Exactly.
And also, in my opinion, this case is not only a failure on Emani's parents' front, but it is also a failure on the child services front, because they had multiple opportunities to remove this child from this situation, and they did not.
But they learned from it.
They did.
They do learn from it.
Yes, they do.
Things are better because of this case. That's the very thin silver lining here.
So she pled guilty and was sentenced to 5 years of probation as part of Georgia's first offender program, which I feel like that shouldn't count in a first offender program.
No.
But in my opinion, at least.
There are certain crimes where it's like, maybe this shouldn't be a first offender. Maybe this shouldn't be associated with a program.
Right. Exactly. So the Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services, or GDFCS, which you'll hear multiple times in this case, approved the plea deal after completing parenting classes. The GDFCS dismissed the case against Tiffany and Emani. So they were like, you can just take some parenting classes. Obviously, in my opinion, now, of course, there are some parents that can learn from those situations, but these people don't seem like the types that would benefit or be reformed from just a couple classes. After the March 2010 beating, Emani was taken from her parents' home and placed with her grandmother, Robin, for approximately 6 months. Now, during this period, Emani's academic performance improved significantly. Emani's grandmother diligently fought for custody of her granddaughter, but in the fall of 2010, the GDFCS returned Emani to her father. Damn. Which is like, why? She obviously was doing better in the care of her grandmother.
Exactly.
And her grandmother actively wanted to have custody of this child. So why are we doing that?
New at 6 o'clock exactly 1 week ago, Tiffany Moss was found guilty of killing her stepdaughter. And tonight, we are hearing emotional reaction from the child's grandmother.
Certainly are. She fought, but she failed to gain custody of 10-year-old Emani Moss. She's now speaking out about the trial and the verdict. CBS 46's Ashley Thompson is live in Atlanta with much more on her conversation with Robin Moss.
That's right, Sharon. And Robin tells me she has not slept well since this trial ended. She's still trying to find some peace, and right now she says she's taking things one day at a time.
I want to cry right now. It's just a lot. It's just a whole lot.
Robin Moss takes this colorful beaded keychain with her everywhere she goes. Her precious granddaughter Emani made it for her. She says she thinks about Emani every single day.
Her smile, the way we used to talk head to head, the silly things she used to do.
10-year-old Emani suffered a cruel death in 2013 at the hands of those who were supposed to love her. Her stepmother, Tiffany, starved her. Her father, Iman, was complicit and helped Tiffany burn the child's body in a trash can. Robin says she never really had a good relationship with her daughter-in-law.
The only thing she used to always say that my son was a mama's boy, and that she was going to change him.
Iman pled guilty to murder in 2015 and is serving a life sentence. Tiffany took her chances representing herself in her murder trial over the past few weeks. She stayed silent for most of it.
And I just asked the Lord, if there's no truth to come out of her mouth, then don't let her say anything.
Robin still holds resentment toward DFACS. She fought but failed to get custody of Emani when she suspected abuse.
If they would have did their job when she got beat the first time, that's sign number one. Ran away, sign number two, ran away again, sign number three. I mean, how many signs do you have to have?
Tiffany could be just the third woman executed in Georgia, though Robin says she doesn't find peace in the sentence she was given.
I really don't believe in death for death. That's just like a gun for a gun. You shoot me, now I'm gonna shoot you. So the whole domino effect is just kill, kill, kill. Why do we have to keep killing?
Now, Robin says she has forgiven her son and she does talk to him when she can. She says right now she's trying to figure out a way she can partner with DFACS to make sure something like this never happens again. Ashley Thompson, CBS 46 News.
There's just some situations. So obviously, neither of us have ever been in this type of situation. So again, I don't know the nuances of how all of it goes. And I know it would prefer that the child be with one of their legal parents. But
we are speaking from some legitimacy just because we know how this ends.
Yes.
And so anyone who knows how this ends would understand that the grandma's 100% needed in this situation and not going to happen.
So she was returned to her father, and despite her suspicions that Emani was being abused, Robin was unable to convince the authorities to grant her custody. Prosecutors later argued during Emani's trial that the March 2010 abuse incident triggered a chain of reaction of further abuse, ultimately leading to Emani's death. Mm-hmm. Moss's guilty plea to beating Emani resulted in her being barred from teaching preschool, obviously, which fueled her resentment towards Emani as she blamed her for the job loss.
All right. So I know we gave like a little trigger warning in the beginning and everything, but how much details in it? Like, did you put full detail?
Yeah, it's fairly detailed.
So, like, really, if you have issues with any type of child abuse at all, like, not the episode for you, because this is going to get really graphic.
Yes. Now, in May 2012, Emani's school reported emotional and psychological neglect to DFCS after Tiffany Moss allegedly hit Emani on her back and head with a belt, in quote, because she was eating breakfast too slowly, which would make her late for the bus.
That's like
severe
like
abuse.
Sociopath behavior. That's sociopath mom, like, for sure.
Literally. And she was only doing, supposedly, again, there's no evidence to support that she didn't do this to her other children as well, but she's literally doing this to one child.
It's like Leilani Simon.
Exactly.
Like, it's like Leilani Simon. That's our first episode ever. And if you go back and you listen to it, she was convicted and she treated her one child like shit. And then the other children, did she have two other children or one?
She had two. She had two. She had a son and then a daughter.
They were fed. They were, this, that, and the other. And it's like a mom thing. It's like these.
I think it's because it's not her biological child. She's disassociating herself from it. If that makes sense.
Maybe that might be it too. She hates this kid though.
She does.
We know that. Also, if you hear Madison blowing her nose just off to the side, she has a little bit of a cold. But
I'm so sorry.
No rest for the wicked. We doing this episode.
Literally, yeah. I'm so sorry, y'all. I have horrendous allergies and sinus problems. But anyways.
All right, let's do it.
But anyway, so Moss continued to abuse Emani for several years, and in July 2012, Emani attempted to escape home twice. Now, during one incident, she visited the apartment office and informed them that her stepmother had restrained her with a belt and subjected her to a cold shower.
And this is when she's like 9?
Yes, so this is 2012. So
so she's like 8 or 9?
Yeah, she's a young child.
She's a young child running away.
Right.
What does that tell everybody?
Well, literally, so just the fact that it's absurd to hear that. If a child came up to me and said, hey, my stepmother restrained me in a shower and subjected me to sit under cold water for an extended period of time, I would do something about that personally. But
you would think.
So the police responded, but Moss denied Emani's claims. So, of course, they took the adult's side. But I'm like, how is this young child? Like, of course, there are some children that will lie about things, but this is not something that a child at her age would have any reason to make up. But
especially with the history. But anyway,
with documented history.
Yeah.
But since there was insufficient evidence to warrant charges, Emani was returned to her stepmother and her father, Iman. Now, in July of 2012, another incident happened, and Emani fled and was discovered sleeping in the bushes of a nearby apartment complex by an officer. Emani explained that she had run away because her stepmother was hurting her.
It's like, come on.
Literally. This is why I said there are so many opportunities.
It's infuriating.
It's infuriating because there were so many opportunities for this child to be removed from the situation, but so many people dropped the ball on it.
Like, we're not professionals in this manner where it's like we work for GDFCS, but my God, you don't have to be a professional, y'all, to see that there is
to have common sense.
To have common sense. This kid is suffering.
Right. And I guarantee you, too, if the officer had actually looked at her just visibly, she probably had some kind of bruises or welts.
Absolutely.
There's no way she didn't. So
this kid suffered every single day of her life. Anyway, let's other than when she was at her grandma's house.
Exactly. So the officer reported the incident to the GDFCS and filed charges of a runaway and curfew violation against Emani to ensure she would appear before a juvenile court judge. He punished this child for running away from her abusers. He literally charged her with a curfew violation. If that's not a broken system, I don't know what is.
Super broken.
Because it's like, so you're punishing this child from trying to get away from these evil fucking people. It makes me very mad. Sorry. I will probably get very heated throughout this episode because it really irritates me. But from July 2011 to the summer of 2013, the Moss family moved around, sometimes staying with family members. Emani, who worked long hours, had limited time to spend with his daughter. And during the weekends when he was in charge of the children, he reported that she would eat excessively. I wonder why. When the Mosses lived independently, Emani rarely interacted with the extended family. Again, I wonder why. They're trying to hide something. So in May 2013, the Mosses visited Iman's sister, Sharonice. They stayed at her house for Mother's Day. Sharonice and her grandmother, Robin, noticed that Imani's hair had been cut. When Robin confronted Tiffany about it, she allegedly responded, "If you act ugly, you should look ugly."
Yo, that is not how to parent.
That's not how to parent.
That's not how to parent, man.
I'm like, I can't even imagine if somebody, if that was my grandchild, if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong in your demented brain? And obviously, Robin clocked all of this because she was trying to get custody, but the system wouldn't let her. So now Sharonice also observed that Emani seemed more timid. And after the 2012 to 2013 school year concluded, Emani and Tiffany announced their intention to withdraw Emani from public school and homeschool her, which is horrifying. Sharonice expressed her opposition to this decision and contacted the GDFCS, requesting their intervention. However, the GDFCS declined to take action.
Wow.
These two people both have child cruelty charges. They have child cruelty
and now
charges.
they want her all to themselves for every day.
What?
Yeah.
What?
No.
But on August 6, 2013, the GDFCS received an anonymous tip alleging that Emani was being neglected by her father and stepmother and appeared to be underweight. According to a lawsuit filed by Robin against the GDFCS, the agency failed to visit the home or conduct a follow-up investigation due to the lack of a current address and absence of any evidence of maltreatment. That's a lame excuse.
Yeah, all they got to do is look at her. Have her come to the door.
Well, so they're saying that they didn't follow up because they didn't have a current address. I'm like,
you find it.
I'm like, you're in contact with the extended family members. They know where they're staying, obviously.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy. Anyway, we can criticize them all we want, but yeah, we know they fucked up.
Yeah.
All right.
So Mother's Day, May 12, 2013, marked the last time any members of Emani's family, excluding her father, stepmother, and siblings, saw her alive. In late summer 2013, Emani, Tiffany, their children, and Emani relocated to an apartment in Lawrenceville, Georgia. According to District Attorney Danny Porter, this marked the beginning of Emani's disappearance. During this period, Emani held 2 jobs, leaving him largely absent from Emani's life. He would leave for his first job early in the morning, return briefly in the late afternoon, and then depart for his second job around 6 p.m., finally returning between 10:30 p.m. and 11 p.m. So he was gone all day.
Yeah.
While Emani was at work, Tiffany was responsible for caring for the children. And at some point, Tiffany began to starve Emani. Prosecutors allege that this starvation likely lasted for several weeks. During this time, Emani was confined to her bedroom, and neighbors only observed Tiffany's biological children and were unaware of the existence of an older child. Emani eventually became too weak to move, unable to leave her bed, urinate, or defecate because her body was fully shutting down, truly.
Yeah.
Despite Tiffany's denial of food to Emani, she did provide care and sustenance to her 2 biological children.
What she does though, or do you have the thing that
we're literally about to read it.
Yikes.
And on several occasions, Tiffany sent Iman pictures of meals that she had prepared for her children. And in another instance, she requested her husband to bring home cookie dough so she could bake.
Like, you got evil in this world, and then you have that, whatever that is.
Yeah.
That's just like,
that's so cruel.
Ultimate evil in my mind. Like, to do that to a child. Like you're having fun with it at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And during the trial, prosecutors highlighted that Emani would have had to smell the baked cookies while lying in her room starving to death.
And so you moved in the sun, did you say in September of 2013?
Yeah.
To the apartment?
Yes, sir.
Where did you live? Did you ever live with your mother?
Yes, that was, you talking about me and Tiffany or just?
You and Tiffany and the children?
No, sir.
Not, the three of you didn't live there?
No.
Did Emani ever live with your mother?
Yes, during the incident in 2010.
And after that, was Emani placed with your mother?
No, sir.
Well, how did she end up over there then?
You said at my mom's house?
Yeah, I mean...
Okay, how did you get in 2010, we had the spanking incident. Tiffany spanked Emani. She had whips and stuff all on her arms and back, then legs, a belt whip.
Okay. But the question was, how did she end up staying at your mother's house after?
Defects. We moved her out of our home and put it with grandma.
And how long did she live with grandma after the 2010 incident?
I want to say 6 months.
Did you or Tiffany ever did you go to court to get her back, or were you just allowed to by defects?
No, I had to go, it was required for me to, it was required for Tiffany to take anger management and in-home counseling. The other program was volunteer. I didn't have to do it, I just did it.
The one that you talked about, Dad's class,
yes.
Right? And so after you completed that, were you allowed to get Emani back?
Yeah, after several supervised visits.
Did you ever talk to your mom about Emani staying with her?
Yes, I have.
And how did you feel about that?
I didn't really mind.
Right. But I'm talking about after 2010, did your mom ever ask for Emani to come and live with her?
Yes, she have.
And what did you say to that?
In my pride, I said I was trying to prove something to my mom that I can do it, and I said no.
Right. And so you got Emani back when?
I got it back in 2010.
Right. And so did she move with you from Pearlie's house to the Veranda Chase apartment?
Yes.
At the apartment, did she have her own room?
Yes, she did.
What kind of scum do you have to be to do that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Obviously, if this is what's happening, you are truly just the worst of the worst. According to Dr. Staffenberg, the medical examiner who testified at trial, the process of starvation to death would have been excruciating.
Yeah.
Initially, Emani would have experienced intense hunger pangs. Subsequently, she would have become fatigued, gradually losing energy and weight until her demise. On October 24th, Emani, who believed she was having a seizure, who was believed that she would be having a seizure, suffered that seizure at home in her bedroom. Tiffany, who had come home to find Emani in the bathtub because Iman had moved her to the bathtub, rushed to the bathroom and found her unresponsive with her eyes rolling back and forth.
Like rushed to the bathtub. Like my thing is the obviously the husband is
complacent.
Is in this. Yeah, 100% is complicit. And I just don't understand how he is letting this happen. He must be the subbiest little bitch.
Right.
You know, like, yes, ma'am, anything. That's kind of the only way that I can picture this, because both of them can't be, that would be an anomaly that both of them are this evil. Well, right? Like, we know the mom is, and that's why she got the death penalty. But like, does she have this weird control over the husband?
I guess she must have something. She must have something like over his head that he doesn't
something
want.
like that.
Because there's
weird.
Again, if your child is having a seizure, why did you not call 911?
Exactly. Well, he knows what they're doing. I'm just wondering, like, he just doesn't want her to go to jail, or doesn't want both of them to go to jail.
Don't know.
Anyway.
But
crazy.
Emani was then taken to her bed and remained there for the next few days. During this time, Emani visited her and tried to feed her, but he was unsuccessful.
Yeah.
And tragically, Emani passed away on October 28th, 2013. And by the time of Emani's death, she was severely underweight, with Dr. Staffenberg describing her as more or less skin and bones. Her weight was only 32 pounds or 15 kilograms, which is the average weight of a 3-year-old. And she was 10.
Yeah.
Additionally, her organs were found to be unusually small during the autopsy. On October 28th, Moss called Iman at work to inform him of Emani's passing. Iman testified at trial that when he returned home from work, the family appeared normal, with the children playing and Tiffany watching TV.
Yeah.
However, upon finding his daughter lying on a blanket on her bedroom floor, he realized something was amiss. He suggested that they call the police, but his wife insisted that they couldn't because she feared losing her children. Like, fuck off.
Wonder Mom.
I'm like, you don't deserve to have those kids.
Wonder Mom.
Like, you don't get to have those children. No. I don't care, you know? Tiffany then instructed Iman to conceal Emani's body and to be on our criminal mind, was her direct quote. Which is like, so you don't care that you did this.
Premeditation right there. Yep. Premeditation.
Iman wrapped Emani's body in blankets and moved it to the computer room. The couple kept Emani's body in their apartment for 5 days. While Tiffany and her 2 kids, Tristan and Emma, were there almost all day, every day.
I love how Madison reads this. She gets so pissed off about this because she reads this like the prosecutor. Their finest statement of the prosecutor.
Literally. Well, because if there is one thing, like, okay, listen, I'm like, you're already a piece of shit if you hurt adults, but if you hurt a child who literally can't defend themselves against you, you are the worst.
Over a long period of time, too.
Yes.
Like, this is straight torture ending in death.
For years.
This is torture ending in death. Like, oh my gosh. But anyway.
But yeah.
Let's
sorry, y'all. I get very heated about this. I don't fuck with people who hurt
Prosecutor
kids.
Maddie, let's do it.
Yeah. So while Tiffany, while her stepdaughter is literally rotting in their computer room, Tiffany and her 2 kids, Tristan and Emma, were there almost all day, every day. They ate, they bathed, they watched TV, all of the things. And Iman went back to work, working 2 jobs every day, just doing normal things. And Emani lay on the floor in a blanket decomposing. Iman testified at trial that he would go to work and spend time at home with Emani's body, grieving her loss. If you really gave a shit about your child, you would have done something about it. Like, at that point, fuck your marriage. It's about your kid, you know?
Yeah.
Anyways, so then they engage in post-mortem desecration. The parents...
Yeah, it gets worse, y'all.
It does. It gets worse.
I don't know how it can, but it does.
So the parents agreed to conceal Emani's death, as we've all come to learn. And the following day, Tiffany visited Anna Linens and purchased new sheets and a coverall, as the ones Emani had used were filthy with excrement and urine. Tiffany suggested disposing of Emani's body and reporting her as a runaway. Iman, in turn, went to Walmart and bought a galvanized trash can, trash bags, charcoal, and lighter fluid. He is equally as to blame in this case.
I think he should have got the death penalty, too.
I agree. But on Halloween, Moss and Iman decided to place Imani's body in the trash can and burn it. However, when they attempted to do so, they discovered that her body was too stiff with rigor mortis. So to compress her body, they used duct tape. Iman then covered her with a comforter. The Mosses then stuffed Imani's body into the trash bag. And on early November 1st, the Moss couple loaded the trash can containing Imani's body into the back of their car and took their children to find a suitable location for burning it. Like, how demented do you have to be to, first off, kill a child, then say, we're going to burn the body to hide the evidence, and we're going to bring our other kids to go do it?
Literally.
Like, what is wrong with you? And so,
there's nothing there. There's nothing in her head.
Right.
There's nothing telling her, no, this is not good.
Right.
Like,
and they discovered a secluded spot and removed the trash can from the vehicle. They added charcoal briquettes to the bottom of the can, doused Imani's body with lighter fluid, and set it ablaze. As the couple observed the body burning, they realized that it refused to reduce to ashes. And after approximately 5 minutes, they extinguished the fire and returned the trash can and Imani's body to their apartment. So, the day after attempting to burn Imani's body, Iman went to work with her body still in the back of his car.
Yep.
After his first shift was over, Iman called a friend and asked him to meet him. He needed to talk to him. Iman told the jury his friend met him at a QT, a local gas station, and they began talking, and Iman told him what happened and who and what was in the Trailblazer, which was his car. His friend immediately jumped out of the car and told Iman he really needs to call the police no matter what Tiffany says.
Yeah. You don't say.
Literally. Iman contemplated his actions and after returning home from his second job, decided to contact the authorities. At 4 a.m., he made the call claiming to be suicidal. Iman informed Tiffany about his decision to report the crime, and upon learning that the police had been notified, Tiffany disposed of Imani's remains in a grassy area at the apartment complex and fled in the family vehicle with her children.
Yup.
Upon arriving at the apartment, Iman informed the police that Imani had ingested chemicals and succumbed to her injuries.
The jury now has the case in the trial of Tiffany Moss. She's the stepmother of 10-year-old Emani Moss, whose burned body was found in a trash can near her family's apartment in 2013. Investigators say she'd been beaten and starved to death. Fox 5's Angelique Proctor joins us now from Gwinnett County Courthouse. Angelique, Tiffany Moss faces a death penalty if she's convicted.
That's right, Portia. The stakes could not be higher. This jury has been deliberating in this death penalty trial for about an hour now. Tiffany Moss surprised no one when she told the judge this morning she had no closing statement. Keep in mind, she has not asked any witness questions during this entire trial. Now, the prosecutors have referred to Moss as that evil stepmother who deliberately starved her 10-year-old stepdaughter to death, then stuffed her body in a trash can and set her on fire along with her husband, Emani Moss. Closing arguments were so emotional this morning that 3 jurors, 2 women and 1 man, cried as they were cited. Imani's 4th grade teacher was also present in the gallery. She cried as well. She was a witness in this case. Now, the state said Moss blamed little Emani for losing her teaching job after she was convicted of cruelty to children for beating the child with a belt for not finishing her homework in 5 minutes. Prosecutors urged jurors to end the evilness of this case with a guilty verdict.
This defendant intended to kill that child, that she murdered Emani Moss, that she starved her to death, and then she covered it up by throwing her out like she was trash.
Ms. Moss, your closing argument when you're ready, ma'am.
I want to make a closing argument.
And there it is. She told the judge she had no closing statement. We also had a bit of breaking news just right before lunch. The judge denied standby counsel's motion to intervene on her behalf during the sentencing phase if she is found guilty. But with the judge denying that motion, Ms. Moss will continue to represent herself. We are reporting live in Gwinnett County. Angelique Proctor, Fox 5 News.
All right, Angelique will be paying close attention to what happens. Thank you.
Emani Moss's Division of Family and Children Services, DFCS, case file notes how her father described to police the torture the young girl endured. Scalding with boiling water, isolation like a prisoner, and the starvation that ultimately killed her. He asserted that he had panicked and placed her body in a trash can outside the apartment at Coventry Point Apartments, attempting to cremate it. However, the police found the body and disregarded Iman's account, swiftly identifying him and his wife as suspects. Investigators concluded that her body was deliberately disposed of in a trash can to conceal her death, and that it had been in the can for an extended period, likely over a couple of hours. Iman was apprehended almost immediately, and Tiffany dropped her children at her mother's house and ultimately surrendered herself to the authorities. Iman confessed to covering up Imani's death by reporting her as a runaway and attempting to burn her body. In 2015, he pled guilty to felony murder and concealing a death, resulting in a life sentence without the possibility of parole. So because he pled guilty, that's probably why he got out of the death penalty. But
that's definitely why.
In exchange for...
They wanted her head.
Exactly.
We know who's the ringleader of the shit show. It's her. Definitely her.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, in exchange for his cooperation, Iman agreed to testify against Moss, who declined to a plea deal that would have allowed her to serve a life sentence. Iman is currently incarcerated at the Smith State Prison in Glenville, Georgia.
And she's the only woman on death row?
She is currently the only woman on death row. And if she is actually executed, she will be only the third woman to be executed by the state of Georgia.
Georgia don't execute people.
Y'all write a letter in to Kent.
Yeah, right.
But meanwhile, the case against Moss proceeded in trial. And here she is at trial.
She'd have been dead if this was South Carolina. I'll tell you that right now.
This is Imani's grandmother.
Jeez.
So, Tiffany's trial started on April 15, 2019, under the presiding judge, George Hutchinson. The jury comprised 12 individuals, 6 men, 6 women. Despite Judge Hutchinson's attempt to persuade her otherwise, because Tiffany Moss was such a delusional, full of herself narcissist, she chose to represent herself.
Ted Bundy.
Literally. However,
there's a type.
There is a type. However, her defense attorney served as standby counsel to address any legal queries. During pretrial hearings and jury selection, Judge Hutchinson emphasized the importance of relying on the standby counsel, but Moss adamantly refused. Notably, Tiffany did not deliver an opening statement, cross-examine any witnesses, or present a closing argument. So what she did there, I have no fucking clue. District Attorney Danny Porter and Assistant District Attorney Lisa Jones called 18 witnesses, including Imani's aunt, grandmother, and 4th grade teacher. So Lisa Neal, who was Imani's 4th grade teacher at Bethesda Elementary School, testified at Tiffany's death penalty trial that Emani was precious and it was a blessing to have her in my classroom. She was a wonderful friend to every student, even a student that bullied her. She tried so hard to be friends with on a daily basis. Emani would tell Miss Neal every day about her baby brother. You could tell how much how much love she had for him by the way her face just brightened when talking about him. Sometimes it would seem like Emani wouldn't want to leave school and go home, almost like school became her safe spot. They also called Iman and Dr. Staffenberg, the medical examiner who conducted the autopsy on Imani's body. And on April 29th, Tiffany Moss was found guilty on all 6 counts, including 1 count of malice murder, 2 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of cruelty to children, and 1 count of concealing a death. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours.
Less than 3 hours.
For a death penalty case.
Woohoo!
Which is absolutely insane, but it was very obvious that it was warranted. And during the sentencing phase, Tiffany Moss declined to address the jury, present mitigating evidence, or allow her relatives who had attended the trial to testify on her behalf. She knew she was fucked, so she was like, I'm just going to let it happen. She also refused to deliver a closing statement, as we mentioned before. And in the state's closing argument, Porter argued that Tiffany Moss did not deserve a life sentence, regardless of whether it was a life sentence with parole or a life without parole sentence. He asserted that she should not be given the opportunity to be released because she would never change.
That's true.
That's
obvious.
Yes. His quote was, "She's shown you too much of her capacity for cruelty. There will always be that dark side waiting to emerge." And Porter further argued that for Moss, life without parole would be a harsher sentence than death because she did not remorse her crimes and would never be bothered by them.
Mm-hmm.
After closing arguments, the jury commenced deliberations, and initially they appeared conflicted and were advised by Judge Hutchinson to return home and sleep on it. The following day, they resumed deliberations and ultimately reached a unanimous decision to impose the death penalty as a punishment for Moss.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, you don't have... I don't know. It's like with the death penalty, usually people are really reluctant.
Yeah.
But for everyone to be like, yeah,
she deserves it.
This is out of all, I have heard so much true crime in my life because I consume a lot of true crime. This is probably top 5 worst crimes I've ever heard of.
I completely agree.
Hands down.
I don't know how you could, like, obviously there are people who don't believe in the death penalty, and that's totally valid, but I feel like it's hard to listen to this case and not feel like it should be eye for an eye.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? But the sentencing ceremony took place on May 1st, where Judge Hutchinson concurred with the jury's recommendation and sentenced Moss, who was then 36 years old, to death by lethal injection.
Boom.
Moss's sentencing marked the first time in over 5 years that a person was executed in Georgia. Judge Hutchinson scheduled Moss's execution for between June 7th and 14th, 2019. Porter expressed his sentiments regarding the death sentence, stating that there was no joy in imposing such a sentence, but he acknowledged that this case was one of the most disturbing he had ever encountered.
Yeah.
The initial scheduled execution date was delayed, though, due to the appeals process, resulting in an automatic stay of execution,
of course.
which always happens.
Yeah.
But Moss is currently incarcerated at Arendelle State Prison and holds the distinction of being Georgia's sole female death row inmate. If Tiffany Moss is eventually executed, she would become the 3rd woman to be executed in Georgia since 1945.
Okay.
And as of March 2024, an execution date remains unclear.
Well, of course it is.
A little bit about the appeals process. Despite representing herself at trial, Moss did later accept legal representation in her appeal. And shortly after being sentenced to death, the Georgia Capital Defender Group filed a motion requesting a new trial, citing several grounds, including Moss's alleged incompetence as her attorney.
No, that is a waste of money.
I completely agree. But
we know what she did.
Right. And Moss's attorney represented neuropsychological testing data indicating damage to the premotor and prefrontal regions of her brain.
Wouldn't she have treated the other kids like that then?
Right.
If she's just so messed up?
Exactly. A status hearing regarding the motion was held on August 23rd, 2019. It did nothing.
Good.
So after sentencing, Emani and Tiffany, who are still married, mind you, even though they're both in prison for life, lost custody of their 2 children after Emani's murder. The children were placed with foster parents, and the Moss couple, along with both Tiffany and Emani's mothers, attempted to regain custody. In 2019, Porter reported that the children had been adopted by their foster parents. And the couple's son, who was 3 years old when Emani was killed, reportedly had some recollections of the crime. Mm-hmm. Just so disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
However, according to Porter, at the time of the interview in April 2019, the children were doing great and might never know the truth. So we're going to wrap it up with the impact of Emani's death. So Emani's murder sparked criticisms and prompted systemic changes in Georgia's child welfare system, as very obviously needed. And following the incident, several GDFCS employees, including an intake case manager, a social services administrator, and a program assistant, were terminated.
Good. They don't need to be in that job.
Right. Others faced disciplinary action. The department implemented reforms such as conducting deeper investigations into allegations of abuse and altering its approach to assembling maltreatment reports. New case managers and supervisors were hired to reduce caseloads. Agency workers no longer solely determine whether reports warrant investigations based on telephone gathered information. And additionally, no case is assigned a less serious or lower priority status until a caseworker meets a child who is allegedly abused.
See, I love Georgia. I love this state. And I consider it my home state. And I'm glad that we were able to learn from this case and implement reforms because this was awful. This was handled the worst way. She would still be alive if we handled it correctly.
Right. In response to Emani's death and several other abuse-related deaths, Governor Nathan Deal commissioned the Child Welfare Reform Council in 2014, and in January 2015, the council released a report outlining recommendations for enhancing Georgia's child welfare system. In 2018, Emani's grandmother, Robin, filed a lawsuit in the Gwinnett County State Court against the GDFCS and the Department of Human Services. Robin alleges that caseworkers were aware of the deteriorating conditions and abuse within the Moss family and could have intervened earlier. She seeks a jury trial and reasonable compensatory damages, and the lawsuit claims that the department had multiple opportunities to investigate the Moss household and protect Emani. It states as a direct and proximate result of the negligence of DFCS and its agents, Emani suffered constant abuse and deprivation from 2008 until her untimely death. Mm-hmm. The lawsuit further asserts that Robin is entitled to recover damages for Emani's wrongful death, including the full value of her economic and non-economic life expectancy.
Heard that.
So
excellent research, Madison. All right, so I already have my rankings. Brutality gets a 4. Just kidding. It gets a 10.
A 10.
It's very obvious that this is a 10. It is truly one of the most brutal cases I have ever heard. I said that before. Premeditation, I'm giving them a 10 because this happened over such a long period of time. And when they moved and decided to homeschool the child, that to me said, we're going to kill her. We want no one to be able to see her lose weight. We want to, mainly this is obviously Tiffany being the ringleader here. Mm-hmm. I think that she knows she's going to kill this child in brutal fashion. And I think that she knew the way that she was going to do it required no eyes.
Right.
Because this wasn't going to be a gunshot to the head.
No.
And
she wanted it to be long.
The cookie thing, that is one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard. Right. When I heard her say that in the car, I almost wrecked. Like it was, ugh. Anyway. All right. Motive 10.
Yep.
And I think that the motive was her own pleasure, control, and power over this poor child.
And she lacked empathy because it wasn't her biological child. She could disassociate herself from it.
Yes, exactly. Difficulty of the investigation is the only one that's not a 10. I'm giving that a 6 because the way they were disposing of her body was not very. It just didn't work, and obviously it wouldn't work. But I do believe that I'm giving her a 6 or it a 6 because the homeschooling thing made it very difficult for them to investigate, even though they definitely should have looked further into it. We all know that.
There's no mandated reporters.
But there's just, that made it a lot more difficult to investigate even before the crime happened.
Right.
So, 10-10, 10-6.
I also gave 10s across the board, except for difficulty of investigation. For that one, I gave it a 7 because I completely agree with you. It ranked lower because their ability to clean up a crime scene was just absolutely abysmal. But it was what makes it higher is that they were able to get away from this from like possibly earlier than 2008 even till 2013. That's a long time to get away with abuse.
Yeah.
So obviously they were doing something right in that way, but also that, in my opinion, encompasses all of the people who dropped the ball in this case as well, because they are partially to blame as well. And obviously that has been reformed now and it has been acknowledged, but I do think that a 7 feels correct for that.
It does.
So.
All right. Tiffany Moss gets an astoundingly high 9.125. Now we will add y'all's ratings in there. Just give us the average of your rating, and we will average it into ours. But I believe that this is actually extremely accurate. 9.125. I think she's scum of the earth. I think that she.
I hope you rot, Tiffany. I hope you're
hear this.
Well, maybe. You never know.
Prosecutor Maddie.
Tex Watson can have a whole podcast in jail, so you never know what she can hear.
I mean, a little different.
Well, if there's a possibility of Tiffany hearing this, I hope you rot. And I hope your lethal injection goes terribly and you suffer, just like you made that child suffer. So...
All right.
Well, this case really infuriates me. I hope y'all feel the same type of fire as I do.
I'm sure some do.
Because, like, I'm not even a mother, but, like, I don't know.
No, I mean, you don't have to be a mother. You just have to, like, love kids.
This child did not...
You don't even have to love kids.
This child did not deserve a single ounce of what happened to her. And... that monster does not deserve to have
brutal,
she does not
torture.
deserve a easy death is what I have to say. Eye for an eye, motherfucker. Let's go. So
all right,
y'all. So yeah, like JT said, leave us down below what you rank Tiffany Moss and all of her band of losers. And other than that, y'all, go watch something a little bit nicer after this.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe go watch some nice, like, cartoons or something.
We have a really sweet episode on BTK if you want to go back to that.
Oh, my God. Anyways. But, yeah, thank y'all again for listening to today's episode. My name is Madison Timmons.
And I'm JT Timmons.
And don't forget, next time you're walking down the street, you might just be passing a perfect 10.